So we'll start with just some introductions, and we'll start down here at the end closest to me, asking, what's your name, what was your Trinity graduating class, and where did you end up going to school?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Trey Christopher. I graduated with the class of 2016, and I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C.
I'm Katie Robertson. I graduated in 2020, and I'm at UCLA.
Hi, I'm Lizzie Leathers. I graduated 2016. Hi. And I went to Hillsdale College, and I'm currently at UK School of Law right now.
Hi, everyone. My name is James Almeida. I graduated in 2014. I went to Chapman University. I'd also like to flex that my grade was the first one to go kindergarten through 12th grade. It's the first ones to do that.
I got it. Ooh. Hello. All right, brother.
Hi guys, I'm Eric Ohl, class of 2014. I went to University of Minnesota Duluth for a year, and then I came back here and went to Woodbury University.
Hello everyone, I'm Nathan Thomas. I was class of 2022 last year, and I currently go to Pepperdine right now.
Hello, I'm Spencer. I graduated 2019, and I go to SC.
Hello, I'm Mateo, or a lot of people know me here as Matthew. I did my undergrad at Westmont, and then I did my MBA at Pepperdine. Yeah.
My name is Kayla. We both graduated in 2015. And then I went to Westmont for my undergrad. They're married and this is their baby. That's our baby, Miss Ava.
Thank you. And just as another round of introductory questions, what did you study at school? If you're into a profession or into a vocation, what is that? And then maybe also, what are some things that you spent time doing at Trinity? Were you involved in sports or clubs or extracurriculars or community involvement?
I'll start again. So I am now I'm actually coming on staff full-time with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes here in the Santa Cruz Valley. So I'm really excited for that. And then while I was here at Trinity, I played football, basketball, and baseball all 4 years. I was also in-house leadership for 2 or 3 of the years I was here for Boethius, so go Boethius. And was there another question? No. Cool.
Currently, I have an internship with a group called Convention of States, and I'm writing blogs and articles for them. They're a political organization. But while I was at Trinity, I did cross-country, softball, a lot of theater. And go Dante, house captain.
So while I was in high school, I was really involved in swim. I absolutely loved swim. And I was Patrick, house captain. And I was involved with NHS too, I don't know. So yeah, and then I'm currently in law school, so I would like to be a lawyer. So there it is.
So I got my Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology at Chapman. I had an emphasis in sports performance. And then after that, I went to Cal State LA, got my post-baccalaureate in nutritional science. When I went to Trinity, I was on the football and soccer team. And then I was in Boethius, go Boethius.
I did, wow, I'm trying to remember. I did wrestling for a little bit and soccer while I was here at high school. And then coming out of that, I had no idea what I wanted to do in college, but I started with a business bachelor's degree and then started at a aerospace manufacturer, and I was a supply chain analyst. Those other stuff, and got promoted along the way. And now I work at KPMG as a solutions engineer, which is like a consulting accounting firm. And we advise clients on how to utilize data and build like machine learning AI solutions.
Right now at Pepperdine, I'm getting my degree in philosophy, and I'm also a great books minor. And right now I'm actually contemplating getting an applied mathematics minor as well, and I'm also on the pre-med track. And then here while I was at Trinity, I was part of Dante, house captain, NHS, and I played basketball and swim as well.
Currently, I'm studying mechanical engineering. And while I was here, I did soccer and baseball, cross country, and golf.
I studied economics for my undergrad, and then I went and did my master's in business and administration. And I do business consulting now, kind of helping entrepreneurs start their businesses. And I love my work because I get to learn about all kinds of industries that I never would have thought of learning. So I like to tell Kayla that I just learn about businesses every day. Yeah. Oh, at Trinity, I played basketball, and we were on the worship team together, and I think that's it. I was Patrick House. Go Patrick.
When I was at Westmont, I studied elementary ed, but then I became a personal chef. I'm taking some time off to be a mama right now. And when I was at Trinity, I did cheer, YAF, and worship team, and then I was in Cincinnatus.
So we're not quite sure where baby's going to be.
Yeah.
Of that range of experiences and background and where you're at right now, how many of you had the experience of doing something or developing an interest in high school that made the pathway that you're currently on, or maybe kind of the opposite, where you thought you were headed in one direction and then something just kind of swerved in a different direction? But how is that background, your past, your experience here, a predictor of the future that you're currently living?
Shout out to Dr. Engel, because he's the reason I'm doing biology. So my major right now is biology. I'll finish in June. But I'm minoring in history, mostly because I really missed taking history classes from Trinity. There was so much. So the reason I chose biology, though, was because I knew I was going to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to study, but I knew I wanted to learn something I didn't know much about yet. And Dr. Engel had us go to Michigan with him on a research project the summer I graduated. And it was amazing because we just hiked in the woods all day and called it science. And we did do science too, but I was like, this is great. If this is a biology, this is what I want to do. So that's how I ended up.
I can go. So for the longest time, I really wanted to be the best veterinarian in the world. That's what was my dream career. And then on that first day of government class with Mrs. Caddo, that changed everything, and now I'm in law school now. So thank you, Mrs. Caddo. You're incredible. That was the best class ever.
Lizzie, what was the magic of that government class?
It was a Dietrich Bonhoeffer quote, "Silence in the face of evil is evil." That just really stuck with me.
And so right now I'm doing my rotations to become a dietitian, so super into nutrition. And then that journey definitely started here at Trinity. I kind of got into sports performance, playing on the football and soccer team. We were gearing up for our championship season, and that's when I really got into sports performance. And going into my freshman season, our coaches actually had a sports dietitian come talk to us here at Trinity. So that was kind of my introduction to nutrition, was from a sports performance point of view. So I initially wanted to do more sports performance, but then when I got to college, I realized that nutrition was kind of the emphasis I wanted to go in. So yeah, my first taste of nutrition was going into my freshman year here.
I don't have a great answer for that. At Dr. Phillips's class for chemistry, I really liked chemistry, and I thought, I could be maybe a chemist, biochemist, or doctor, and then I realized the debt I'd incur would be insane, so I gave that up quickly. And then I did business, but I think only really at my first company I realized I got bored really quickly, and I ventured out into many departments to learn everyone's roles. And I kind of thought, well, what if I was a consultant, just working in so many different things and different industries? Maybe it'd fuel my appetite, and it's kind of where I am now.
So I kept going back and forth between, I didn't know if I wanted to go into medicine or do philosophy, but when I really got into philosophy, it was my sophomore year with my philosophy class with Mr. Johnson. And I know you guys will disagree, but I love Plato's Republic. And when we read that, it like changed everything for me. And I realized that I want to think about great and important things, but I also want to help people. And so then at the panel where physicians came and talked to us, and Dr. Quach said that you don't need to actually major in STEM to go to medical school. So I realized that, oh, I can study philosophy and still go to medical school. I can still think about great things, and I can still help people. And that's where I'm at right now, and I'm thinking about going into bioethics. So it's a perfect combination of, oh, I get to think about great things within terms of medicine and help people. So for me, it was just having an open mind here, thinking along with the teachers as they guide you through these books and through your STEM courses, what they teach you. So just having an open mind to that, that was the biggest thing for me and getting to where I'm at right now in my academic journey.
Yeah, so for me, it wasn't really something that I ever had to like develop. It was kind of something that like a desire for engineering that I've pretty much always had. But I would definitely say physics with Freeman was something that really spurred me on to do that in college.
Yeah, I don't think anything particularly, any class that I took at Trinity led me to want to go into business consulting, but the love for learning different things definitely has always leaked into all my meetings with clients and asking good questions and just having good conversations with clients. That really was the biggest thing I learned here. And then just always being open to ask big questions even about philosophy or about faith. I lost my faith in college, and then being open to wanting to learn more from my professors, and particularly one of my philosophy professors helped kind of reel me back in and see Christ in a different way. So that's how that impacted me. Yeah.
When I was in high school, I really wanted to go into special ed. I have a little brother who has special needs, so that's kind of where that passion developed and came from. But then for various reasons that didn't work out, and it wasn't until our honeymoon that we were taking like a cooking class from this old like nonna in Italy. And that's when Matteo looked at me. He was like, "Why don't you just do this for a living?" And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." So yeah, that's how that happened.
I think you just described the plot of a Hallmark movie. Thanks. That's good inspiration for the rest of you. What were your reasons for choosing to go to the colleges and universities that you went to, and how do you look back on those reasons now? Do you think like, wow, I ended up at the right place for really dumb reasons, or this is exactly what I wanted and this was a good decision? Did your reasonings change, maybe especially those of you who had that experience of transferring? Why'd you go where you went for school, and how do you look back on those reasons and motivations now? And don't feel the need to go down the line. If you have something you want to share, feel free, but don't feel the pressure to go in sequence.
So I picked George Washington for a couple of reasons. One, they had just opened a $500 million engineering building, and I was like, I'm studying engineering, and that stuff's all new. I'll go use it. And also, I think I only applied to 4 schools this side of the Mississippi. So when I was graduating high school, I was convinced I was going to go as far away from home as possible. Did those reasons work out? I mean, the engineering technology was really awesome, but I'm not using it at all as I go into ministry, surprise. And being away from home actually ended up having more negatives than I thought it would. So I ended up, it still was really beneficial, but I probably should have picked with different criteria in mind.
So when I chose to go to UCLA, I wanted to do that on purpose because I saw it as a sort of mission field, because of it's a really, I think it is a place of a lot of great learning, but it's also a really dark place that needs Christ. And so that was my intention going there. I think it turned out to be harder than I imagined it would be to be able to spread the gospel, I suppose. But it did help me to be very intentional with what I was taking in from classes and also what I was sharing with classmates, having that in mind. So I highly recommend making sure you understand your purpose for going to a specific school, because that makes all the difference. If I went to UCLA and I expected it to be just a good time, then I don't think I would have gotten as much out of it as I have going there to expand the kingdom of God. I'm not sure how effective I was necessarily, but I can trust that I did what I was sent to do, and God used conversations I had. I think it also helped me get involved in the right kinds of things at UCLA. So I'm part of Live Action, which is a pro-life club on campus, and we do tabling on Bruin Walk, which is where everyone walks to go to class. And basically we hold signs saying, like, when do you think life begins? And we ask people to have conversations with us, which I think has really impacted a lot of people. And you get to have civil dialogue on campus, which isn't something that happens often unless you're seeking it out. Also, it's very affordable, so choose an affordable school, kids.
So I chose Hillsdale because I knew that that was a school that would take me where I wanted to become. I wanted a school that would feed my soul, and Hillsdale definitely did that. It taught me how to think critically and just analyze every problem from every side. So I would recommend Hillsdale to everyone. And then I ended up going to WVU for law school my first year. And
What's
it was...
WVU?
What?
What's WVU? Don't use acronyms.
Yes, sorry. I'm so sorry. West Virginia University. Go Mountaineers. And I just wasn't super happy. I loved the people there. I don't know. So I ended up transferring to University of Kentucky, and my parents can contest that that was one of the hardest decisions that they have ever seen me make. And I can say, hindsight being 2020, 1,000% the best decision to transfer UK. I'm a lot happier there. I love it there. I'm learning. It's wonderful. So just like sometimes you kind of have to go with your gut, and yes, so just trust yourselves. You know what you want.
So I had made a kind of a checklist of things that I was looking for in a school, and then I only applied to things based off of that. So some of the things I looked for was I wanted a school that at least had some sort of connection to religion, Christianity. So Chapman isn't technically a religious school, but they have a bunch of Christian programs on campus. It was initially founded as a Christian school, so I wanted something that at least had that connection. And then only so many schools have kinesiology programs, so that limited it pretty heavily. And then I wasn't sure what emphasis or specialization I wanted to do, so I only looked at schools that were accredited through the National Athletic Trainers Association, just in case that was the specialization I decided on. And then my dad actually went to Chapman, so after looking through all that, I ended up going to the first school I looked at, but it ended up being a long list before that.
I was a complete fool with choosing my college. My mom could attest, she was so mad with me. I did not care. I had no preference, no criteria, which was such a waste when I think about it now. I just went somewhere, and then it didn't work out. I made really bad friends, so I came here and just wanted to do business because I gave up on chemistry. And I saw that Woodbury had a really great and accredited business program, which is really good. And then after I worked for a little bit, I kind of forgot to mention this, during the whole COVID thing, I wanted to do more data analytics, and I saw a good program at Georgia Tech, which is a really affordable and still very quality program to do while I was working. So I eventually got into that.
So the reason that what I was looking for in a college was honestly the class sizes. That was really important for me. Especially here at Trinity, I found the value of being able to talk to your teachers and have conversations with your classmates. And something that I'm loving about Pepperdine right now is that I can simply just go talk to my professor anytime I want to or need to. as opposed to at larger schools. Not anything against larger schools, but for me, as being the learner I am, I find it very helpful to interact with my professors directly instead of having, you know, a TA that I have to talk to before I go to the professor. And so that was the biggest thing for me, is just having a close connection with both my classmates and my professors. And so, I mean, it's been a semester, but so far I'm very happy with that being my number one priority, was the class sizes.
Yeah, so I also went to Pepperdine for 3 years before SC. And that was mainly for financial reasons. I was able to go without paying anything. So, I mean, that's really something that I can't emphasize enough, finances for sure. But I ended up going to USC because I wanted to get a mechanical engineering degree, and Pepperdine doesn't have that. So if you guys have the opportunity to go somewhere that's maybe a bit cheaper for the first few years, I definitely would suggest that.
So choosing Westmont, I didn't really know anything from, like, my parents came to the U.S. when they were already a little older, so they didn't have the experience of like getting to go visit colleges and things like that. So I kind of had to figure this out with friends and with teachers here at Trinity, and also I just kind of, it was one of the only places I knew pretty well because I would go do basketball tournaments there. So once I actually got to do a tour there, it felt like home. It felt like the right place. And ultimately, I think it was a great choice for us, or for me, because I like that one-on-one with teachers as well, with professors. And Westmont had this really cool thing where you could take your professors out to lunch and they would pay for it. And so I would take professors out all the time. That's like some of the best. That was like better than having...
When he's saying they would take you out to lunch, it was just to our cafeteria. So it wasn't.
Well, they pay for it. That's the point. They pay for it, and they pay for the professor, and it's like that kind of relationship is really expensive to have in the future. To have someone that has a wealth of knowledge that you can just sit with for hours and pick their brain. So, but finances that's definitely something that should be thought of before, and that's something I didn't think of before. But we focused on, once we were done with school, like, let's pay these loans off, and just don't get stuck in a trap of getting a bunch of loans just to say you went somewhere.
I chose Westmont because of the class sizes. They're pretty small there, especially depending on the major that you choose. So being an elementary ed major, there were some classes that I had that had 7 people, including myself, in it. Which was really nice because I was, excuse me, able to develop close relationships with my professors, which, as he was saying, is really invaluable. And Westmont's also located in Santa Barbara, not too bad. And so I was really excited to be able to go there, and it was a really wonderful opportunity. And I think it's important to choose a college that is going to develop you as a person as a whole. Not just as a student, but at the same time, yeah, something that a lot of people have emphasized is the finances of it. So don't ignore that when you're looking into colleges right now.
Thank you, and I want to just emphasize I appreciate all of y'all answering those questions from your experience, and for you, those of you guys sitting in the audience, to hear somebody saying, here's what I lived, and here's the advice I'd give, versus just here's the principle, or here's the platitude. It's definitely worth something to hear, to get advice from what someone has lived through and is enjoying the consequences of, or paying the consequences of. So take heed to some of those things that are being said. So some of you mentioned this, Lizzie, you mentioned this, Eric, you mentioned this. Sometimes you make a choice and it's easy to be discontent with your choices and think, oh, the grass is greener over there, or I don't want to stick it out and do the hard thing here. But it's also really easy to just have inertia and be afraid of change and being afraid of doing something different. So those of you who have had that experience of thinking through, is this the right school? Is this the right major? Should I just be in the Peace Corps in Costa Rica? Kind of thinking through those bigger life changes and whether you changed or not. What was your thought process, and what advice could you give of whenever you were thinking, oh, I'm not sure this was right. I'm not sure I'm going down the path that I should. Do I need to make a change with my choice of school and with my choice of vocation, with my choice of friends that I maybe am settling into?
Go first. So everyone can attest that I hate change. I do not like change. I don't like any sort of discrepancy at all. So what it came down to was I was praying a lot, and I was just like, God, I just need a yes at this moment. Like, I just need a yes. And like door after door was being shut, and I was just like, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't this club want me in it? This whole thing, little things. And then God gave me one yes, and it was, you can transfer to UK. And then I felt like it was Jonah going to Nineveh. I did not want to go. I was like, I'll go over here. I'll get on a boat. I'll be swallowed by a whale. I don't care. I don't want to go. But then I came around at 11:59 when the deadline was midnight. So give yourself a lot of grace if that happens to you. I've done that. Please call me. You can definitely call me, and I will talk you off of any ledge, because I've been on that ledge. So there you go, if that helps.
I love change. I feel like I need it. Total opposite. I feel like I just get bored and complacent very quickly. But I don't like the consequence of change. And especially when you're going to college, for you guys and girls, I mean, how could you know what you want? Some people are so driven. My brother is an artist. That's all he's ever done, and he's amazing at it. My girlfriend's amazing at marketing. That's just, she knows she wants to do it. I still don't know what I want to do. I still question my happiness all the time. And it's tough in college when you're going in and, well, maybe you'll do business. Maybe you'll be a generalist and get a business management degree like I did. But then you're not very competitive in a niche at a company that you're trying to apply to, which is challenging. But then internships can really supplement that, which is really important. But then in my case, where I did business for the majority of the time, and then I started to grow towards data analytics and data science. And you could learn that on your own, but at one point, I mean, there's a lot of classes, there's so much math you need to take, and that could be a whole other year of college you didn't take that you need to do. So it's tough, but don't shy away from that. It's something that I'd say Trinity really geared me for when I started my master's at Georgia Tech. Well, to even get into the master's, there was so much math I didn't take. I think I did pre-calc when I was here, and I barely passed. So I read 2 complete cover-to-cover math textbooks and video series and did all the questions just so I could even get into my master's program. But then, again, me changed and complacent. After the first semester, I got kind of bored with it, and I didn't really enjoy it anymore. But it got me into the door at a huge firm, so it did its job, I think.
And my advice would be to keep your career as open-ended as possible. So I was fortunate in that I had an idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be ideally something in sports or health, human performance. So I kind of bounced between athletic training, sports science, nutrition, stuff like that, which are all pretty similar. So I was fortunate where the prerequisites were all kind of the same. Even though I changed my emphasis, I was still kind of in line with that. But you don't want to get to your junior year or later and then decide you want to do something else. So there's a few things you're interested in. I would say even if you're dead set on a major, at least look into what the other career choices you might have are. So that way if you do decide later that you want to go with what is currently your second choice or third choice, at least you could lay down the stepping stones earlier. Maybe you take a prerequisite or something like that, so that way you're not taking prerequisites your junior year for a career change. I had friends who completely switched majors going to junior year, so some of them had to do additional years at college. I had others who dropped out for a year to do classes at community college because they had to do the prerequisites. So just kind of keep it open-ended as possible, so that way you can pursue something different, even if you're dead set on something right now.
I didn't do that. I did the exact opposite. From about sophomore year, I was convinced I was going to be a biomedical engineer. Sophomore year of high school, I was convinced I was going to be a biomedical engineer. So I toured only colleges that would fulfill that major, applied to only colleges that would fulfill that major, took only classes. And then I got to about my junior year, and I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I want to be in a lab all my life. And so just from the flip side experience, it is wise to diversify as much as you can, remain interested in the other things, and don't pigeonhole yourself, because now I finished that degree because I was close and I finished it, but now I'm going into ministry, and I don't know if you guys know this, but biomedical engineering and ministry are not very closely connected. So I do really encourage you, like James was saying, remain open, take a bunch of different classes. Trinity offers a variety of classes, and so take advantage of that now, and then take advantage of it when you get to school.
I would add to that, make sure while you're keeping things open-ended that you actually get real-world experience with the thing you think you're interested in. Because a lot of times, I noticed in my own experience, I thought I wanted to go do research, so I spent a summer in a lab of a PhD student on campus, and I just counted beetles all day long for the whole summer, and I went crazy. So I realized I don't want to do research. So actually, there's a difference between studying things in a classroom and actually getting hands-on experience in real life. So if there is something you think you're dead set on, ask someone if you can shadow them, ask them what their experience is, but really you need to be in their shoes, not just hearing about it, to understand if you want it or not, and that'll help you make a lot of your decisions.
To pick up on that, were there any experiences that you had, whether it's internships or things that you got to do, that really paved the way for, nope, I do not want to be a beetle counter, or yes, I want to go do this or make this my vocation or make this a part of my life in terms of an interest or relationships or clubs? What are some of the experiences that you had while you were in college that formed your path?
So like I said, I was kind of dead set on something sports performance or athletic training related, but then my program director for kinesiology actually had his background in nutrition. So now that I'm in nutrition, everyone kind of considers me a career changer, but my undergrad was pretty nutrition based. So even though, like I said, I was dead set on kinesiology, it was similar enough where once you have a professor that's that invested in an emphasis, it kind of inspires you. So kind of relating back to what I was saying earlier, that you never know what life experiences or professors or something might inspire you later.
I only had one internship in college, and this is going to be my don't do what I did kind of advice. Don't treat your degree like a ticket. Once you get out, don't expect you're going to get a job. Don't expect that one ticket will give you all the competitiveness to get a job just because of its title or something. From day one, year one, and I speak from so many people that I've met who've done internships or just networked with their teachers, or their professors. They have so much accumulated experience to network and find interesting things that you like to do, and to just get that experience, because you just want to build your toolbox of skills and experiences to know what you really want as you keep going through your degree. And that's something I just didn't do. I really treated it like a ticket, and just check that one box off of an internship, and you're just gonna really be behind. I guarantee you.
I think the first time that I realized I wouldn't want to do biomedical engineering was I actually got to shadow a fellow alumni parent who was working at, I think it was St. Jude at the time here in San Fernando. And the first half of his day was just sitting in a sterile lab, like building stuff and working with things, but not really talking to anybody else. And I was like, I really like talking to people and being personable and interacting. So I don't think I want to spend 8 hours a day sitting in this sterile environment. So get as many of those experiences, what everything looks like, because I had one idea of what biomedical engineering was, and what the day-to-day was actually very different. So yeah.
Okay, so I just have a quick little tip. So if you're ever like, I don't really know anything about this. I don't know like what area to even pursue an internship, or like even if I want to go into this. I would really strongly encourage you reach out to, like, if you look at the like course syllabus at your colleges that you go to, and you look and you're like, oh, business or whatever. So then you would reach out to like one of the faculty members in business, and you just say like, you know, hi, my name is so and so, da 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 da. So nice to meet you. Sorry to bother you. I was wondering if you have 30 minutes to chat about this thing. Then they usually say, oh my goodness, that would make my day. Thank you so much. Can you come by in 30 minutes? And then you're just like, okay, I'm running. This is great. So like that is like one easy way to get foot in the door, and then that works like throughout. So like I do that all the time. So like for example, UK has an NCAA compliance office, and so I reached out to the head person. I was like, hey, like I'm very interested in what you do. Can you like tell me a little bit more about it? And she responded within 30 minutes, and she was just like, oh my goodness, are you free tomorrow? Can you come in? That'd be great. And I was like, oh, lovely, yes, I'll be there at 8 o'clock. And she's like, that's too early. You know, the worst they're gonna do is just not respond, which like, you know, that's fine. No adult or human is gonna be like, who is this loser? So just, you know, you got this.
Switching a point of focus, when you look back at your time in high school, whether it's at Trinity or just your high school years, what is something that from where you currently stand, you look back and think, I am so glad that I did that. I am so glad I made that choice or made that decision. Or on the flip side, I am so glad I did not do that and made the choice to not or to stop. What can you look back and see, yes, I'm proud of this, I'm glad of this, or I'm glad that I didn't do this or that I didn't choose that?
I think it's really important during high school. My parents were really good about helping me with this, but forming spiritual disciplines during high school, because once you're in college, a lot changes and a lot is different. But I think it gives you a leg up just in your life in general to have like a rock you can stand on. And so if you aren't putting in the time now to be invested in a church community, to read scripture and to spend time with God, then you're not going to do that during college. So point your toes in the right direction now while you're at home in a safe place that you're very comfortable with, where you have friends who go to church with you, and make those decisions now, because they will help you in the future, whether you think so or not. Because one day in college, even having made those decisions during high school, it can be really confusing. And I wouldn't say I necessarily had a point where I walked away from the faith, but it was definitely a time where I was really scared of losing my faith, not because it was something that was likely to happen, but just because it felt like the whole world was against you. And to be able to have a community that I knew and trusted and loved and knew they were wise, smart people who believed the same thing as me made all the difference in the world. So I recommend investing in that now, because it'll serve you well later.
So one advice I got from an advisor at Trinity here was to look up people that are currently working in the future jobs that I would want, and kind of look at their resumes. So I remember like 12th grade kind of going through a bunch of the performance staff of NFL teams and MLS teams, and just kind of writing down anything on their resume that stood out, and that way I could compare them to all the other people for different teams. So I was like, what did they get their undergrad degree in? What did they get their master's in? What certifications do they have? What other qualifications? What internships did they do? What did they work? What kind of job did they have in college, after college? How'd they work their way up? So that way I could kind of model my resume after that. And so that was a big goal of mine, kind of noting what consistent qualifications I had. Like, what does everyone across the board have? What does certain ones have? Do they have more elite qualifications than other ones? Which one's more rare? Which one's expected? So that was something I was very thankful for, and that's kind of what I based my resume off of as well. And then another thing, I remember there was one guy here at Trinity who was a few years younger than me, and I said this just kind of offhandedly, but I told that he would bring it up a lot. He said it really stuck with him. And my advice to him was, you'll never regret getting good grades. He said that stuck out to me. A lot of people now who, everyone I know now at my age that didn't get good grades or better grades, they always say it's a big regret of theirs. They say, I wish I got better grades. you don't care at the time, but then it follows you. You always look back and be glad you got them. So that would be my advice. You'll never regret getting good grades.
I have two things. First of all, I will never regret engaging in class. I think that is really important. Sorry. Thank you. It is such a special structure that we have at Trinity, and to be able to engage in several different discussion topics, and the way that we engage in those discussions too is just really thoughtful, and that is really helpful not just in college but later on in life. I feel like this is a pretty big panel for a bunch of really talkative people, and I think that we're all pretty talkative because we all probably participated in class, and Mateo and I will always kind of reflect on this and engage with certain adults in life now and be like, they don't really talk. And so I think developing the skills to engage in conversation is really important. And then something else that I will never regret is developing relationships at Trinity, because those can last you a lifetime. Some of our closest friends are people from our class, and it's just really special to continue to go through life with people, and starting that relationship when you're young and going through these different stages of life together is really fun.
In my junior year of being here at Trinity, I had like a mini meltdown once I started to find out that actually when I started to watch the seniors do their senior thesis, and I saw that and I thought, I can't do that. I gotta leave. And then I have friends at Valencia High School where I was for a month before I came here, and they're doing like arts and crafts for senior year, and I'm like, why do I have to write 20-something pages? And I got in a huge fight with my mom, just telling her I wanted to leave, and the best decision I made was just to stay, to contend and struggle through these challenges, because if you choose the easy route, you're going to be dull. Challenging yourself with such difficult topics really sharpens me, and I'll be honest, through my whole college career, I don't think I had anything more difficult than my senior thesis. Everything was generally a cakewalk, and I hope they didn't make it easier for you guys, because that's not fair.
For me, I would say that the biggest thing that I took away from Trinity was how to be curious. I feel like here at Trinity, things aren't spoon-fed to you, and that was the biggest thing that is helping me in college right now. Is if you are curious, go ask a question, go look it up, and I believe that is going to take you so many places. Is just being able to speak up for yourself and say, hey, I don't know, and have some humility and go ask someone. And even when you're choosing a career path, don't choose a career path without talking to someone. Again, like they're talking about experience, go experience that thing, research that thing, and as the seniors know right now, you have to be curious about your thesis. You have to go look at what are people saying about this thing. And the same thing applies to the real world job. Why do I actually want to do this job? What does this job entail? And so I would say being curious is probably the best thing that Trinity has taught me, because there are so many things that I feel like I've discovered. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But thanks to me being curious and actually looking into that thing, I was able to make that decision and realize I don't want to do this solely on the reason that I was curious.
All right. Stand up, turn to your neighbor, and tell them the best thing you've heard so far. And then turn to your neighbor and ask them for a good question to ask the panel.
Oh, I didn't want to go. It's because my best friend was at WVU, and I felt like I was betraying her. And then she told me to go. From the get-go, she was like, "You need to go." And I was like,
So this is definitely a compliment to our alumni that I didn't tell you that your break was over and to sit down. You just did it on your own, of your own free will, because you wanted more of this. So I hope you guys feel gratified by that. What is something that you wish that you knew on your last day of Trinity or your first day of college? Something you wish you knew on your last day of Trinity or your first day of college?
So I got this advice pretty early on in college, but I would have, of course, liked to have known it even sooner. So a lot of master's programs, they require letters of recommendation, and a lot of them even require specifically academic letters of recommendation. So I had some professors who kind of gave me this advice early on, which I was fortunate about, but the examples they give is sometimes people just kind of go through their classes. They just think about, I'm just gonna get my degree, worry about the master's program later. And then they go to apply their master's program and they have no professors to ask for a letter of recommendation. So that's something I kind of started on early. You don't want to finish your degree and then be struggling to get letters of recommendation. I've had professors tell me that they've had students get all A's in all their classes, but then they never heard from them. They didn't know who they were. So then they asked the professor for a letter of recommendation, and the professor had to tell them, like, you got straight A's in my classes, but like, we never spoke, like I have nothing to write about. So kind of start that early. I started communicating with my program director of kinesiology pretty early. I was always emailing him questions about class. He taught a bunch of classes. So even those emails, he saw my name all the time. When I graduated, he actually thanked me for my passion for kinesiology, and then he actually told me, let me know if you ever need a letter of recommendation. So that worked out pretty well for me, but definitely the sooner you start working on that, the better. I had certain professors I had initially thought I was going to ask for a letter of recommendation, and then kind of fell out of contact. They didn't teach a lot of upper division courses. So even if you pick 2 or 3 early on, it may not be the 2 or 3 you settle on later. So just kind of start working on that earlier. The more you email them questions, they have so many office hours, and people don't really go to those office hours, so they're happy to have an email to reply to a lot of the time. So like I said, you don't want to finish your undergrad and then be scrambling for an academic letter of recommendation, hitting up old professors you have that don't remember your name. One benefit too is a lot of advice I got was to go to office hours. That way you get that face-to-face time, they'll recognize you. But I would definitely recommend you guys complement that with emails as well. The professors, they have so many students every year, and so many of them have been teaching for so long that even if they recognize your face, if they don't remember your name and then years later you're emailing them for a letter of recommendation, they may remember your face but not your name. So even if they don't remember you and then you ask for a letter of recommendation, they could even just search their email for your name and then see all those questions you asked them throughout the years. So I would definitely complement face-to-face time with emails as well. And they really do appreciate those questions. It's something that means a lot to them, and it shows they're passionate, and their professor's always looking to share their knowledge. So keep in mind those letter recommendations, start working on those early. Again, they have so many students every year, so many classes, they've been teaching for so long that it's really hard for them to stick out. So one of the benefits of Trinity is so small, you get that community, you know your teacher super well, but that's definitely going to change depending on how big the college you go to. So letter of recommendation for a master's program, even if you don't think you want a master's or you're going to Korea doesn't require it, you may have jobs that ask for them as well. So definitely keep that in mind, the letters of recommendation.
Something that I wish I knew going into college. and I wish I thought about, which is really silly of me. You live there. You're going to have a roommate. You're going to have to eat their food, which probably won't be that good. And I didn't think about that, and it's honestly really getting to me. I don't sleep well. I don't like my roommate. So, being really pragmatic about it, when you talk to people about being their roommate, be honest, ask them honest questions, because you're living with them and you're going to share a room. And just thinking about where you're going to live is really important. And I feel like it's very easy to romanticize places. As for me, I live in Malibu and I literally see the ocean as I walk out my dorm. But that still doesn't change the fact that I'm frustrated when I go back to my dorm. And it doesn't change the fact that I'm still, I don't eat because I'm sorry, I don't mean to rant. But seriously, think about where you're going to live. Yes, academics are important, but ultimately you want to be in an environment where you are comfortable. And I think I want to get comfortable, so hopefully I'll get there.
And one thing I want to emphasize too about Nathan's answer is where you want to live doesn't mean the view that you have, it means the people that you're with and what you do with them, which if you make your decision based on the climate or the attractions that are nearby, that's not what your day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience is going to be.
Yeah, I was going to add something from a social perspective as well, with friends and stuff. Don't just befriend people because they like basketball and you like basketball, or you watch the same show. That can be a factor, but just something that I didn't know my first day of college was you have to be really intentional if you want to find friends that are going to build you up and that you can also build up. So I kind of, for the first month, I had my friends, that I came in with, or that, I kind of related to a little bit right off the bat. But when I would sit back a month into college, I'm like, wow, those are some guys over there that are having Bible studies, or that are getting together and having a meal and talking. They're not just connected because of a mutual interest. And so I kind of inserted myself, and I'm like, I really like you guys. You guys seem like you fear the Lord, like you are interested in learning about things you don't know about. And I remember Kayla being like, you can't just insert yourself. And I was like, I'm going to. And now these guys are my best friends, and they were up there. They were my groomsmen. And so, yeah, just really think about befriending people who are going to challenge you.
I would just say this. I would tell myself, little freshman me, give yourself the freedom to fail. Give yourself the grace to fail, because I did not. And obviously, I fell hard. College was hard. It's across the country. And I just really wish that future me could have looked me in the eyes and says, you're going to be okay. Nothing can thwart God. And I just really wish, Anna's laughing because she knows it's true. The twins are significantly cooler than me, so I'm the dorky one, so they know. But anyways, just give yourself grace. It's going to be okay. Thesis is hard. Schools is hard. Sports is hard. Balancing is hard. There's going to be moments where you're like, it's 11:50 and thesis is due in 9 minutes. And I have another page to meet the minimum requirement. It's going to be okay. You can recover, I promise. I wish I could say I've learned my lesson in that, but honestly, I just took a final and I submitted it with 30 seconds left. So learn from me. Be better. But also, if you're not, you're okay. I'm okay. It's all okay.
Go ahead.
Go for it. No, you go.
I was going to say, are you guys all seniors or juniors and seniors? Okay. So whether you're nearing the burnout or you're at the burnout now, once you get to college, you will most likely be really excited for your first day, your first month, your first year. Some of your other classmates may not be as excited to be there. They may not be as excited to engage in class. They may not be as excited to learn, but don't let that squash your passion for learning. I think that that's really important. Mateo and I took a statistics class together, and we were the only freshmen in the class. Everybody else were juniors and seniors, and we were the only ones that participated. And it was so embarrassing because all of the juniors and seniors just thought that we were know-it-alls and they didn't like us. But then by the end of the semester, they were the ones coming to us to ask for help for the final. And it was just really fun to be able to engage with something at a higher level and engage with professors and engage with fellow classmates. So don't let your passion for learning fade as you go into college.
I wish someone had told me when I was deciding where to go for colleges, and maybe they didn't need to tell me, maybe I should have figured it out myself, but that going far isn't an accomplishment and staying close isn't like failure, because I think I had this conception, even though I was going to UCLA and I felt like that was where I was supposed to be, and I felt like it was a big accomplishment, that because I was commuting for the first few years because of COVID and things, I felt like I was failing in some way because I wasn't like having all these experiences in dorms and with crappy food and all these things that was the typical college experience. I wish someone told me that's not, I don't think it's that important. I think that leads a lot of people to things that they regret sometimes, and it also has its benefits. You get immersed in community. You can be if you make good decisions. But I think that it's important to know you aren't, like, the distance you go from your home isn't measuring your worth or measuring the like bravery you have for making those decisions. It's pretty arbitrary, and you can still be in charge of your own life staying near your hometown.
Yeah, so I would say from an academic point of view, try to get involved in at least one like academic club or research or something like that immediately when you get there. It doesn't have to be anything that you think you'll pursue in the future. Just at least if you have something, it can get you really far. I did astrophysics research for 2 years, and I'm not doing astrophysics research. I don't want to do that in the future. I learned through that experience that's not something that I want to do. I don't want to sift through data for like hours on end. So if you can at least get something like that, I think you'll figure out maybe something that you want to do, don't want to do, or it could just be something on your resume that stands out.
I think there's two things. The first is, Mateo already kind of touched on it, but be very intentional with who you are friends with and who you invest in. My freshman year, I actually joined a fraternity, and I don't talk to any of those guys anymore. But there's a group of guys that were all on the same floor our freshman year, and I think we only actually took one class together, but we are still texting. I live in LA, 2 live in DC, 1 lives in New Orleans, a couple live in Pittsburgh. We're all across the country, but we're still texting daily. We're in fantasy football leagues together. We're doing life together. And those are the guys that I actually didn't hang out with for the first 2 years as intentionally, because I was like, oh, I'm in a fraternity. Those are my guys. Doesn't have to be that way. Find the people that are willing to like just do life with you. Those are going to be the really valuable relationships and the ones that last. And then the other thing is get plugged into a local church like the first week you're there. I think somebody probably told me that, and I was just like, nah, I'm good. I can study the Bible on my own. That's not true. I mean, you can, but go get in a local church. That's the community that's going to support you when times are tough when you're at school. That's the community that's going to give you free meals when you come over after church and feed you when you don't have money for food. And they know all the local spots. So I went to DC. That was way across the country. I didn't know anything. Had I got plugged into a church, they would have been able to tell me where to go get food, where to have fun events, things like that. So, and then the corporate worship environment cannot be overstated enough. To be in that environment where you are worshiping together, studying the word together, that is such a key part. And had I done that, I'm convinced my university experience would have been significantly better.
You should really be intentional, I think, especially when you leave Trinity. Unless you realize it already, it's kind of hard to tell when you're in there, but you're in a bubble. You really are. And Trinity really is built this stairway for you, and you have a lot of grace to fall and keep climbing up it. But as soon as you get into college, it's more like elevators, and you could choose a lot of them that are going to bring you down. And it's even worse after that, because into the work life and real adult life, there's nothing. And you really have to find your own way. So you should really start to think strategically about the things you're going to choose, the friends you're going to have, where I'm going to get involved, how am I spending my time, because it's really going to sharpen you into what you're going to end up being. And sometimes that might not be on the right path, and it's good to have that perspective to change that and choose a better path. Yeah.
All right, one last question, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. Help these juniors and seniors out. What's either one of your favorite memories from Trinity, or what is something that you want to tell these students, hey, this is some of the good stuff of the next season of your life that you can look forward to doing, something to choose or embrace or that you get to enjoy whenever you get to college, whenever you get to your adulthood and career? What's some of that good stuff? Or what's one of your favorite memories?
So one of my favorite memories, and I've talked about this with a lot of people I graduated with, is we all really cherish the ability to play sports at Trinity. If you go to bigger schools, it's a lot more competitive. There's so many people that you're sharing playing time with. They may have cuts or something like that. So that's something a lot of people from my grade year and the year below me that we talk about, is that we really enjoyed playing multiple sports, being able to do that. Any other school playing football and soccer, they overlap so much, it's almost impossible. So I really enjoyed that about Trinity. And then I would recommend everyone try to, those are into sports, at least try to do like intramurals or club team in college as well. But yeah, that was definitely my favorite memory of Trinity, is the ability to play sports and all that. I know that's something everyone from my grad year really appreciates.
I think my favorite memory was a group of like 4 or 5 of us were taking the AP physics exam. But before we did, we all went to IHOP and just had a pancake breakfast, because we're like, if we're going to suffer through this exam, let's suffer with bellies full of good food. And so just kind of that memory of, we didn't have to do that. We could have just shown up and taken the exam, but because of the community component of Trinity, we did know each other and like each other well enough to go do that. And that ties into what to look forward to is, in college, there's going to be a lot of chances to just say yes and go do random things spontaneously. I encourage you guys to take advantage. If somebody says, hey, I've got an extra ticket to a baseball game, do you want to come with me? Say yes. Hey, we're going to go to a museum. Say yes. Like, go enjoy things and find fun to do. The studying will, you guys are good students. That's why you're at Trinity. So the studying and the classes will figure themselves out. You feel free to take that hour or whatever it is to go hang out with people and do something fun.
So my favorite part of Trinity was probably all the fun little swim team, little antics. I absolutely loved that. I loved, even when it was just me and Michaela, we had a lot of fun. And now it's grown, and like it grew every year that I was on there, and every year it was so much fun. But I also loved our senior year when we would sit together at lunch underneath the senior tree. We called it the senior tree. I don't know. It could just be a tree now. But we called it the senior tree. And I just thought that our class as a whole was a very inclusive, warm, welcoming environment, and that really made a difference, because senior year is already hard. Like thesis is hard, it's AP classes are hard, trying to balance homework with college applications, very hard. Trying to do like every sport under the sun, hard. But just like having that camaraderie of like, oh, well, like, you know, it's gonna be okay. Sierra is doing the same thing, except for she has 3 more AP tests all at the same time, and she'll get a 5 on all of them. But yes, and then my favorite part of like probably something to look forward to in college is just the friendships. I was a vice president of my sorority, and probably my favorite part was Christmas time. We would decorate the house, and so then like it was like full of Christmas, and like it always smelled like cinnamon. It was just so fun, and like we would sit around the kitchen table, me and the swimmers with wet hair, And we would just do homework, and like everyone, it was just so joyful. It was such a joyful experience, and it made coming home from morning practices. Speaking of roommates, my senior year roommate, she was delightful. Every time I would come home from morning practice, she would have this like French opera playing, and she'd be doing yoga, and she'd be like, I made you a chai tea latte. And I was like, every time. It was the best. So sometimes your roommates are wonderful. So.
I'll add to that, something to look forward to. If you have the opportunity to live with like good friends, do it. I'm living with Tamar, who graduated in the same year as me, and we have a blast, guys. You don't even understand. Our apartment's like, we always have people over for dinner and things like that. So there's lots of opportunities in college to be able to like have a loving place that people can come to, and it just makes your life so much better when you're able to serve other people in that way. So I highly recommend that. And my favorite memory, sorry, this is so nerdy, but in philosophy class, we would do like discussions, but we did it with 4 corners of the room. So like if you stood on the like totally disagree side and the totally agree side, and then somewhat and somewhat. Anyways, but myself and Greg Salazar, we would always have this like vendetta against each other. So we would purposely take one of the sides that were strongly, and then see how many of our classmates we could sway to our side. And we had like a running count the whole year. So that was pretty fun.
Did you win?
I don't remember. I think I won, because I think there was one time where Greg came to my side. So anyway, I think that's my favorite high school memory, because it's such a Trinity thing to do.
All right, who wants to ask the first question? We've got about 10, 15 minutes. And after Gianna asks her question, I'm going to be in the back. And if you want to ask a question, come stand by me and I'll give you the microphone.
This is for any of you. What was your senior thesis and how controversial was it? Like, did people get mad at you for your thesis?
Mine was the virtues of monarchy, and I actually still thought it was pretty good.
My thesis was, I was trying to remember my thesis statement, but I don't. It was on the separation of the church and state, which was pretty controversial because I was the AF president at the time. So I had some parents come up to me like, wow, we're really surprised by your topic. But it was really fun to be able to engage with, and don't be afraid to pick well, I'm sure that seniors have already picked it, but juniors, don't be afraid to pick a controversial topic and lean into that.
So mine was on Winston Churchill, which, if I remember correctly, Mrs. Caddo was very strongly opposed to, and probably still is. But yeah, I guess it was fairly controversial because it was an acknowledgement of his deeds, but also a criticism of some of his failures.
I think I take the cake for controversy. Mine was on the importance of women in the home within families and how it benefits everybody.
Mine was aborted, miscarried, stillborn babies go to heaven, and the counseling approach. So, yes. Light stuff.
Pick something interesting, though. My employer found that somehow, my video. But as long as you're speaking intellectually about it, I mean, it's okay.
I think mine was too nerdy to be controversial. Mine was on the corporate social responsibility of bioengineering companies to like make their devices cheaper and more accessible. So I think people were mostly just confused. Don't do that, just as a tip.
And so mine was on Christianity. I was arguing that Christianity specifically is faith-based versus religion being act-based. So I kind of wrote about Christianity being more of a religion, more about being a faith.
All right, our next question comes from Aiden.
Hi, so I'm not really going to college. I'm enlisting in the Marines, but I think the question still stands. What do you do when the culture or your environment is against Christianity and so you? And how do you stay strong on the faith?
So I am a prime example of that. I went to a very progressive school in Washington, D.C., which was kind of very not faith accepting. But I just was really grateful actually for Trinity and the apologetics and just kind of how there were so many reasons that I had for my faith and for the hope that I had that I didn't necessarily go around arguing with everybody around me. I mean, I was in science, so everybody was constantly trying to make the arguments, but I never lost my faith because of everybody around me, because I had those arguments and those reasons like 1 Peter 3 talks about. So just that, make sure you have the reasons at hand.
I'll add to that. I think Trey said to go to local church, like your first Sunday, and stay there. I think another important part of that is bring friends with you, because when you have friends who you know you're going to church with and worshiping with, who you know are reading the same scripture as you, then you're able to have those same conversations that you might normally now, if you hear something, have with your parents. You can have those with those friends, and it makes your friendship so strong because you're going through life together with the hard things and the hard questions you have, and you don't feel like you're going insane. Because the biggest trick of places that are excessively progressive, like UCLA, is that they just make you feel crazy. Like, you feel so stupid for being the only person in the room to disagree with this, and you aren't, and you know you aren't because you've had really wise people your whole life telling you these other things, and that's okay, to disagree with everybody else. And also just keep reading books and keep reading things that agree with your position, because counteracting what you're told in the culture is really important, not just to say like, oh, I disagree, and leave it at that. And you know that from Trinity. You need to have reasons, you need to have arguments, and so just read as much as you can. It's really important. Even if you don't like reading, listen to Audible. Do stuff that gives you good truth and not just lies.
So I didn't have the experience of having like a community that totally disagreed with me, but going to a Christian school that's non-denomination, there are a lot of people with different views about Christ, about God, and that is kind of what led me to lose my faith. Was like, I'm seeing all these different views. I have to take these classes of Christian doctrine, New Testament, Old Testament, and a few other. I took some like religious art classes. It was just something I was interested in. And I lost my faith at that time because I just felt like everything was so contradictory. And so at some point I was like, well, I give up, because everyone within each strand of belief, or not everyone, but there are these people that are so smart and they know their beliefs so well that it made me just kind of be like, okay, I'm just going to accept that everyone is really smart at what they believe, but I'm not sure any of it is real. And so, but the way that I got out of that like disillusion was talking to my philosophy professor. And he kind of broke it down really simply. I don't remember what philosopher he was referring to, but after like hours of talking, he's like, I think I know what might help you. There's a philosopher that said like, just sing the songs and pray the prayers. And I was like, well, that sounds very basic and not helpful. But I was like, I'll try it and I'll get back to you. And like for a year, I decided that instead of like trying to debate all these different ideologies, I would just pray and I would just sing the songs that I used to sing. And eventually that opened my heart to then listen to leaders or pastors or podcasts that would then help me kind of be reintroduced to Christ.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, no, please.
Please, Eric.
Anything.
You first.
All right, okay. It's tough if it's like an organization versus just individuals, but I would definitely say have the care and love to understand their position and what they're saying. We really could get in this back and forth issue where we demonize the other party. And it's usually not the case. They're usually not, too object to something. It's often they just think something is better for the good of people, but they still want the best. They still love people and they want people to have happy lives. They're just taking a different route about that. And I think really having that care and love to understand them and then to introduce your thoughts and just discuss it is really important rather than engaging in a shouting match or to completely misunderstand them and think they're just demonizing you for being a Christian. Just having a really fruitful discussion is so important.
Yeah, bouncing off of that, there's a difference between defense and offense. And it's one thing if you're defending your faith, but it's another thing if you're just hopping into conversations to be a contrarian. And I can say that from experience. I was always the contrarian in our class discussions at Trinity, which is fun and it keeps the conversation interesting and keeps it going longer. But in real life, no one likes a contrarian. And as Christians, we're called to act in love and grace. And that is going to be the thing that takes you a long way and brings people back to faith. And draws people into the faith that we have as well.
And then I had some friends in college who were atheists, so we would have friendly debates. We never really butt head. It wasn't heated. It was just more like an exchange of ideas. And so basically what I gathered is a lot of people, they kind of grew up with Christianity. Their parents have them start from when they were very young. But because of that, you never really get the point where you dive super deep into it. Whereas a lot of people who are atheists, it's kind of something they dive into really later in life. They're not really sure where they stand, so then they get super deep into it, reading a lot about it. So then it makes it really easy for them to kind of put Christians on the spot. They'll ask you questions like, how is it even possible to turn water into wine? And as a Christian, how do you even answer that question? So it's kind of questions like that that'll put you on the spot. You don't really think about that. It's a story you grew up with. But then, I remember I really enjoyed apologetics in high school. I really enjoyed the scientific side of it. But then something I got into later was kind of looking at the Bible as a historical book. And so when I would debate with my friends, we could talk about that. I would ask them about the existence of the apostles and how they're great atheist philosophers who actually do acknowledge the existence of apostles. They say it's impossible to argue that St. Paul didn't exist, being a Roman citizen and all that. So that's something people that grow up with Christianity, they don't really think of it that way. So kind of start looking into Christianity from a scientific point of view. Google any scientific questions you have, historical questions. If there's something about Christianity that doesn't quite make sense to you, definitely research it. You'll be surprised with Christian philosophers that are able to answer those questions. So that way when people do ask you questions, you have an answer. So now that you're leaving Trinity, you may go into more public schools, kind of try to dive deeper, scientific and historically.
Our next question is from Bulos.
Sorry. I'm in 11th grade and I have a lot of responsibilities because I have 6 cousins under the age of 8. And I'm planning to move abroad for college into Greece. And being Greek myself, I was thinking for, it's the same culture as where I come from, but what is your advice on just leaving your family and leaving all of these people that you have to take care of and, moving somewhere else?
It's a word that's come up a lot today already, but intentionality is a key component to this. I was not intentional about scheduling time with connecting with family. I think it was 3,600 miles was the total distance I was from home. 3 hours time change, and I wasn't intentional, which meant whenever I decided to call my parents, 9 a.m. my time was 6 a.m. their time. Thankfully, my parents were early risers, so they would often answer. But be intentional. By my second year, I started scheduling time where I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm going to call you every Sunday night. It sounds nerdy and lame, kind of, and it did to me at the time, but those conversations were some of the best. Hey, class this week has been really tough, but I love you, and I'm glad that, and she'd be able to kind of reiterate that to me. And then I started scheduling times to play video games with my brother because Xbox is the easiest way to connect 3,600 miles away. So just be intentional and set up those conversations and times.
For me, I would say, although I'm relatively close to home, but I still have friends that, went a little far away. And the biggest thing that helped me is just calling them, reminisce with them. I always think it's fun I like to think, just look at walls and think about stuff. And that's something weird I do. Anyway, but when you're thinking about your friends, please text them and call them and just be like, remember when we did this thing and how fun that was? And that's such an easy way to connect with them being so far away, because then in a way you get to relive that moment and that relationship with them. So just being able to call them and being able to remember the great and fun things that you did together.
So I studied abroad for a year, so I can definitely relate to the nervousness you probably have with going abroad. But in that regard, I would say definitely you got to expect that there's going to be homesickness, there's going to be culture shock. Lots of things that you probably won't expect to happen are going to happen. You're going to have a lot of things going on because you're going to be doing academics, but you're going to be traveling, you're going to be learning the language if you don't already know the language. So I would say to go into it expecting it's not going to be something that's going to be easy and just a fun vacation, because I think that's kind of what I expected when I went abroad, and it definitely was not that. So going in with that preparedness could definitely help.
And one last question from Owen.
Hi, my name is Owen, and I was just wondering, what's one class you regret taking, either in college or high school? What's one class you wish you would have took?
So this is a little bit different than what you're asking, but so my example would be that really look into your program eval, what prereqs you need to take, what general ed courses you need to take. There were a lot of general ed courses that were fulfilled by my coursework. So if I took those classes when I was a freshman, it would just been a wasted class of something I would have fulfilled later. One example would be I found one course that actually double counted for 2 general ed courses. So I only had to take 1 course. And then I actually checked my program eval, and then the registrar only marked it down for 1. So I actually emailed them, and they were like, yeah, you're right, this actually does double count. So that was like a whole nother class I didn't have to take. So really look into that, look what general ed courses you need, and then look which ones are the most interesting. I had friends who struggled through harder courses, whereas I was able to pick and choose the one I wanted. One specifically was I had friends struggling through some science course, and then the general ed course I took was Intro to Christianity, which was obviously super easy. I'm not sure anyone here could pass that final right now. So just kind of stuff like that, like really dive into deep. Meet with your academic advisor every semester. They'll recommend courses for you. And I would also recommend meeting with your program director of your course. The academic advisors, they'll tell you what's prereq, what do you need to take when, but then your program director will give you more specific advice. So some advice I got was, I didn't have to take 1 course before the next one, but the professor told me that people who take the second course first actually end up doing better. So stuff like that, where an academic advisor wouldn't really know that. They'll give you advice to take this then, but then they'll give that advice to everybody, and they don't really find out later, like if it was beneficial. So certain courses, whereas your program director would have a more understanding of what's going to benefit you, when to take it, even though you can't take something this semester, is it better to take something else first, and stuff like that.
So rarely do I ever regret taking a class, even when there are GEs or things that don't go along with my major. But I would definitely say if you're thinking of going into STEM or specifically engineering, taking something in like CAD or MATLAB or Python or like a coding language over the summer would be extremely useful. And if you guys need like a list of like programs to learn or options or something like that, I'd be more than happy to supply that. But I think something like that going into college will just put you so many steps ahead of everybody else.
So we do have to bring things to a close. So, Owen, you should find Lizzie and figure out how she was about to answer your question. But we're going to ask our alumni panel to actually lead us out of the Celebration Center because we do have to transform this into something else very quickly. So, alumni, thank you so much. If you could exit this way and then students...